Tea is one of the most consumed beverages in the world. With more than 1,500 types of tea around the world, we can trace tea's origin in ancient China and see how a unique plant from China became a worldwide favorite drink. One day, the mythical Chinese inventor of agriculture, Shen Lon, was boiling some water outdoor. When some tea leaves accidentally fell into the water, he was surprised by the tasty and refreshing drink, and he taught his Chinese fellows how to grow and drink tea. Although it is a myth, it highlighted the importance of tea in ancient China. Tea plant probably originated near the area between southwestern China, northern Myanmar and northeastern India. The original tea plant is the same type that's grown around the world today. But the history of tea is fascinating. It greatly affected human activities and even sparked wars. Originally, tea was consumed very differently and eaten as a vegetable or added to soup. During the Tang dynasty, tea was steamed, pounded and then shaped into portable cake. People would cut a small piece of the cake when they wanted to boil tea. Buddhism was popular in Tang dynasty. Monks loved drinking tea as it could help them stay awake during their long meditations. As a refreshing drink, tea powder is a lot easier to process. During the Song dynasty, people ground tea leaf into powder and mixed it with hot water and called this beverage matcha. In the 9th century during the Tang dynasty, a Japanese monk came to China to study Buddhism. After his study, he brought the first tea plant to Japan, and Japanese developed their own unique ritual. Drinking tea became a practice of religion, philosophy and ethics in Japan. They eventually created new tea ceremony. For a long period, China held a monopoly on the world's tea plants. Tea, pottery and silk were three essential Chinese export goods. China had a powerful influence in culture and economic as tea spread around the world. But who brought tea to Europe? British or French? Not really, it was Dutch. In early 1600s, Dutch traders brought tea to Europe in large quantities, and earned a decent amount of profit. The first tea arrived Britain in around 1645. But many credit Queen Catherine of Braganza, a Portuguese noblewoman who married Charles II of England in 1661. She loved tea and made it popular with British aristocracy. Although there were many cafes in Britain, women were prohibited from entering at that time. They are not happy about that. They decided to organize tea parties themselves, and many tea houses were arisen. At that time, Great Britain was expanding its colonies and becoming a supreme world power, and the interest in tea spread around the world as well. Although tea was well spread, tea was still luxury goods at that time, and it was incredibly expensive. Maids were not allowed to touch tea and tea sets, so they could only serve you coffee. During Industrial Revolution, water in Britain was unhygienic. British who were drinking hot water and easily suffered from cholera, so people were used to drink beer instead of water to prevent diseases. But there is a little thing: it was dangerous if you were drunk at work. Processed with boiled water, milk and sugar, tea became the best option to workers as a hygienic and refreshing drink. Influenced by the love of tea in Britain, their colonists shared the same interest of drinking tea. However, you may never expect that tea eventually played an important role in American Revolution. In 1756, 7 Years' War outbroke, and the opposing alliances were led by Great Britain and France respectively. Despite victory and the gain the bulk of New France in North America, the British government was close to bankruptcy after war. The British government did what they do best, imposing tax on tea in North America and combating smuggling. The colonists were not happy about that. The protesters, including some disguised as indigenous Americans, boarded the ships of British East India Company, and threw an entire shipment of tea delivered in Boston Harbor. This episode escalated and later became the spark of American Revolution. After this event, some Americans hated tea as it was a symbol of Great Britain, and became coffee drinkers. As millions in Britain were hooked on tea, the demand escalated quickly. Large quantity of tea was shipped from China to Britain. Although shipping tea from China to Britain was profitable to merchants, British government found that the trade deficit to China enlarged. Don't worry, British government came up with a solution: selling opium produced in India to China. As opium is in fact a drug and China was flooded with it, many Chinese were addicted. In 1839, a Chinese official, Lin Zechu, ordered to destroy British shipment of opium. This act triggered the First Opium War between Great Britain and China, until it ended in 1842 when the Chinese government admitted their defeat. The British then imposed the Treaty of Nanking, which forced China to increase foreign trade, give compensation, and cede Hong Kong to the British. Despite victory of war, the British wanted to break the Chinese monopoly on tea and looked for a new supplier country. So as expected, their little plan was commissioning a botanist, Robert Fortune, to steal tea from China in a secret operation. He disguised himself and successfully smuggled tea trees and skilled tea farmers from China's mountainous tea region to India's Darjeeling region. Eventually, India is now the largest country of production of black tea. Here's the question: is there still room for tea to be innovated? The answer is yes. Bubble tea, and it is one of the most trending drink now. Demand of global bubble tea market size is expected to hit $4.5 billion by 2026, which will be a double of 2022 annual consumption. In the early 1980s, bubble tea was invented in Taiwan. The successful combination of milk, tea, tapioca pearls and syrup allowed bubble tea a unique favor. Despite multiple nicknames, boba tea may be the one drawing you the special attention. Inspired by Hong Kong movie star Amy Yip, a hawker in Tainan City named Grasshopper used boba to differentiate the larger black tapioca balls from the smaller fen yuan. But what does boba really mean? Well, boba, which loosely translated, means large breasts. Quiz time. If tea is so popular, what is the most expensive tea? You have 5 seconds. Darjeeling. Da Hong Pao. Well guess, but we can take a look of the auction in Hong Kong. On November 26, 2018, a tong of century-old blue ticket Song Ping Hao tea cakes were sold, which merely costed you over 13 million Hong Kong dollars. In short, it just costs you $683 per gram of tea leaves, which is 10 times more expensive than gold at same weight. Hope you enjoy this video. If you want to support this channel, click the subscribe button and you will not miss out a new video.